I was curious to hear from your side of things what you anticipated the EQ challenges would be for global companies as they began this kind of remote workplace, and what specific observations have led you to these insights.
The problem came first, not the solution. And the problem was that there was such a demand for technology services that when looking for the talent in a, let's call it 50-mile radius around where the client was, we were not finding what we needed to. And the problem then led to extending the net, right? Making it wider and trying to find people who were further away. And with that came a new problem. And that problem was they can't get to the office, right? And they can't sit with us in order to run our agile method. We couldn't go up to the whiteboard and, scratch out the design. We couldn't use Post-it notes in order to figure out what was going to be in that sprint. We were quite limited to chat. The text-based chat at the time was how we were able to communicate. And it was a real question of whether or not it would actually work. And we experimented it almost because we had to. The clients were demanding, and the people we found were exceptional developers, but we did not know if this idea of everybody working remotely would actually work. And the standards was very important to continue to refine over the years. As text chat turned to videos and the ability to pay attention to verbal cues as opposed to only text cues, that was a big upgrade. And all of a sudden, the verbose chat that we had could be replaced or enhanced with what we're used to, which are facial expressions and smiles and frowns in a always camera on type environment. But this also meant that the standards underlying that had to be there. And some of these might be obvious now that we have all gone through the COVID era, and we all know that you need to have a good internet connection and the high enough quality computer and ensure that you've got a good background and your mic is good enough. These were not obvious at the time. And even today, I've seen many professional institutions where when the entire team gets on the call, all of the cameras are off because it's burden to turn on those cameras and have your attention be focused in the conversation. And so if we don't have those standards enforced, people will, they can be lazy and they can take what is easier, the path that is easier for them at the moment, instead of truly honing in on the requirements for a rich communication that happens when we get closer and closer to physical. And you may say, well, then why don't you just do physical and do away with all of these standards? And the answer is the availability of the development, right? So if you have the ability to 10x and 100x the number of talented software developers around the world, you'll give up the physicality as long as the standards are high enough in order to replicate that. And building a company from the bottom up where all our tools are designed to be used by individual remote developers changes things. I remember so many times where, half the people are in the conference room and the other half are remote. The experience is very, very different for each and every one of those people and creates a whole slew of unintended consequences and incentives that we avoid by simply not allowing that.